like this. Let me start by saying that even before COVID-19, we are used to speaking to people without actually seeing them. You know, when I was saying that I work for FIBA Radio, my job is to sit in a room and speak to people, imagining that they are listening. At least some of you kept your cameras on. I don't mind, if you can keep it off, I have no problem. Okay, it's your discretion. Uh, well, FIBA is a broadcasting agency. We are here in India for the last 60 years. Far East Broadcasting Associates. We started using a transmitter that was used in World War. Somebody when he got a huge inheritance from his ancestors, he decided to sell that and use that to buy a transistor so that Southeast Asia will be reached. And that was the vision of one man. And he sold his property, gave it for the transmission work, and then he moved to an old age home. Then we started broadcasting these programs. We had our transmitter first in Seychelles, an island in Indian Ocean, in Arabian Ocean. Then in 2000, we had to wind that up because the technology was old. The antennas were in the sea, and Seychelles government wanted to reclaim that land. So it was very expensive for us to continue. So what we did is we moved out of Seychelles. We started buying airtime from countries all over the world. Surprisingly, in 2000, when we had to stop the transmission from Seychelles, there were transmitters available all over Asia. In fact, all the borders of former Soviet Union. If you remember, those days, Soviet Union used to spend a lot of money for propaganda. They used shortwave transmitters to propagate communism and their ideas in different languages. They not only used transmitters, they also used jammers so that none of the gospel messages, none of the Western media will penetrate into their country. But we know what happened in '98. The Soviet Union collapsed, and these transmitters became a huge liability for them. So they decided to sell these transmitters, and imagine who bought them. It was bought by all the gospel preaching agencies like FIBA, TWR, CJB. There are many organizations who bought that radio stations, those transmitters, and used to transmit programs through them. So in fact, those transmitters were made so that gospel will not be heard in their country. But see how things have turned around. I always think God has a sense of humor in this. He used the same transmitters to preach the gospel. So that is the story of FIBA and many other gospel broadcasting agencies in 2000. But we had a problem from 2000 onwards. Till 2000, we had our own transmitter. But from 2000 onwards, we had to pay for the airtime. Now, you have very graciously given me 40 minutes to speak. But if I do the same thing in radio, I'll be paying 15 minutes is one unit. So it's around 6,000 rupees. You can imagine, 45 minutes into 3. That much cost is there for airtime. But God is providing our needs. God is helping us. We never had to stop our transmission because of the lack of funds. God has been faithfully doing it. And there are many churches and believers who support our ministry. We are also into various other medium. Just an example that in 2000, January, we had a conference. It's organized by an organization called MIA. So that is Media Impact International. That is the organization. So they were giving training to various organizations to preach the gospel in the modern media, like social media and other new gadgets, using the new platforms. So four of us from FIBA went for that. This training was in Delhi, and they were very particular that after the training, what are you going to do? So we had to make a decision there. Our team had to make a decision. What are we going to do? So we decided to start a podcast. So that was in January. Okay. And we said, since we have decided, the first thing that we do is we go back to Bangalore, start a podcast. And you know what? You all know what happened in February. You know, at the middle of February, we were in full-fledged podcasting. And then the lockdown came. I'll give you one example. See, podcast, when you do a podcast, there are ways to find out where are your listener, where do you have the downloads. It so happened that one of our podcasts, there were some 50 to 60 downloads in Italy. That program was in Malayalam. Surprise, right? You know what? There were people who wanted to come back to India. They were stuck in the airport. The only thing they had was Wi-Fi. They were able to listen to that. So this is an amazing story that we used to wonder, how can God time things like this? The training was in January. We tried it out in February, and towards the end of February, we were in full-fledged. And see, now we have a lot of online things. The internet is full of things because of the lockdown. But in the beginning, we were ready and we were able to provide material. In fact, when we were locked down, our office was closed. I had a portable recorder, and every day I was doing podcast. Every day from home. Like I write the script during the day, night when others are sleeping, I record and send it. Now we reduce the frequency because it is not needed, because many people are doing it. Some people are saying, "Oh, fed up with the material." But when it was needed, God helped us. So I am saying this is, if you really look the way God guides you, it's amazing. God plans things well in advance, and He will prepare you for the ministry that you need to do. Well, a couple of words about me. When I was right that I studied in Film Institute, but when I was in Film Institute, I had no idea to do ministry. That's one part that he missed. I think he don't know about this. Forget about ministry. I was a person who decided in my mind that I will never preach from the Bible. That was almost like a commitment. I am willing to do anything, but preaching, no, I will not do it. And then I finished my studies, came to Bombay. I was in Bombay working with Sahara. Sahara, I don't know whether it's famous or infamous now, but they had a TV network, and I was working in their studio. And that's where we both were together in Fort Assembly. Now, while I was working in that studio, that was a studio where they were doing a lot of work for films, and I was doing that. One day, our chief engineer asked me to come early to the studio, so I went there, and he said, "I have a job to do. You have to transfer something from an old tape to a digital audio tape." That now we are not using all those things. I'm talking about 93. So while I was doing this was a bhajan in Gujarati. A Hindu bhajan in Gujarati, and early morning around 7:30, I'm in the studio. Studio is locked, isolated. There's no noise, and I'm transferring this. I'm listening to this bhajan early morning at 7:30. At that time, one thought came to me. Did I give you all this education to do this? Well, I thought that may be a feeling. It's not true. I don't want to think about it again. But this thought came to me again and again. I tried to resist that thought, but it didn't. It kept coming to me. Then I realized that it was God's call in my life, that this is not what God wants me to do. And that's how I left Bombay. I was in Bombay for almost a year. Then I left Bombay. I didn't know what to do. But then I was waiting, and then through a sister who's known to our family, she said, You heard of FIBA? They have an opening, and that's how I went to FIBA. I joined FIBA as a technician, and 1 month later, one person, the one who was in charge of the program, um, told me, if you can speak in Malayalam, why don't you do a program? I remember that was in February 1997, the beginning of February 1997. Ever since, every week, at least one program is on air for me. I was not trained to be a radio producer or a preacher. Okay, but this is how God led me to do this. So now I'm still a technician, but I'm also in charge of programs, and I do programs also through radio. So that's about me. I also thought, can I share the screen? That option is there? Yes, it is there. Okay. So I just show you the picture of our family. Okay, this is our family. We have 5 children. That's my the one who's sitting in the middle is my father. My mother is no more, and God has blessed us with 5 children. They are all homeschooled. That's it's nothing to brag about it. It's because it's all done by my wife. Except the last one, Daniel. Others are all finished their schooling. Danny is in 10th. 2 of them are in university. They are doing their degree. One is in Bombay, so he goes to Santa Cruz Assembly. Some you would have seen him. So that's my family. Okay, now today we will be looking at Genesis chapter 20. As I was looking through this passage, I realized one thing. It's very rare that people preach from this passage. Not only that, if Abraham was asked to write his autobiography, he would like to skip this chapter because it's a narrative where he was embarrassed. He failed God, he lied, and he and his wife lied, and because of that, there was a lot of trouble, not only for him, but also for others. So I'm doing this because I was doing a series in radio. So I did till chapter 20, no, 19, then the lockdown came, so I had to take a break. So 20 and 21 is what I'm going to do next. So let's look at chapter 20. Shall we read this passage? It's not a big chapter, so we can read the whole chapter. From there, Abraham journeyed toward the territory of Negeb and lived between Kadesh and Shur. And he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said to Sarah, his wife, "She is my sister." And the king of Gerar sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, "Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife." Now Abimelech had not approached her, so he said, "Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Did he not himself say to me, 'She is my sister'?" And she herself said, "He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands, I have done this." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know that you have done this in the integrity of your heart. And it was I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. Now then, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours." So Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told them all these things. And the men were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? And how have I sinned against you that you have brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? You have done to me things that ought not to be done." And Abimelech said to Abraham, "What did you see that you did this thing?" Abraham said, "I did it because I thought there is no fear of God at all in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And God caused me to wander from my father's house. I said to her, 'This is the kindness you must do to me. At every place to which we come, say to me, he is my brother.' Then Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male servants and female servants and gave them to Abraham, and returned Sarah, his wife, to him. And Abimelech said, 'Behold, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you.' To Sarah he said, 'Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Is a sign of your innocence in the eyes of all who are with you. And before everyone you are vindicated.' Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and also healed his wife and female slaves, so that they bore children. For the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife." May the Lord bless the reading of this passage to us. God has called each one of us to be a blessing. But the problem is, most of us think that God has called us to bless us. Well, that's true. God has called us so that we will be blessed. But we miss this point that God has called us to be a blessing. Our selfish mind always seeks for blessing. I want to be blessed. I want to get blessing from God. I want to get blessing from God. There's nothing wrong in getting blessing from God. But remember, we are called to be a blessing. Now, it is there in the divine election. God chose people so that they will be a blessing. Now, let me read a verse from 1 Peter chapter 3. "Do not repay evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, bless. For to this you are called, that you may obtain a blessing." Well, we obtain blessing, but primarily our responsibility is to bless others, to be a blessing. We know that it is true in the case of Abraham also. Abraham was chosen to be a blessing. We know that famous passage from Genesis chapter 12. "And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I'll bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So the purpose of God choosing Abraham, not only Abraham, all those who are chosen by God, his purpose is that they will be a blessing to others, to the society in which they live. Even those who do not know God, they'll be a blessing. Now, this is an important lesson that we should learn at this time in the history. Because there are people who are saying that, God is punishing the world, it is a curse. Well, maybe, maybe God is teaching a lesson to the whole mankind. People are going through difficulties. People are facing death and sickness and insecurity, whatnot. But at this time, God expects his children to be a blessing. More than ever, we need to be a blessing at this time. Now, Abraham should have been a blessing to the people around him. But in chapter 20 of Genesis, we read that Abraham was not a blessing, but he became a curse, a stumbling block, a nuisance. Because of him, Abimelech and everyone in his kingdom had to suffer. What a sad story of a man who was chosen by God. Now let's see what happened in this chapter. Abraham was a blessing, not in this chapter, previously. Look at some of the incidents. We know that. To Lot, he was a blessing. Well, he let him go. That was a blessing because, in fact, Lot was very young when Abraham moved out from uh, his land, Ur. Lot was an orphan actually, but Abraham took care of him. And after going to Egypt, Lot also became rich. And there was an issue between both the servants. And Abraham told Lot, "You're free to leave." So Lot was excited because he wanted to go to Sodom. So he has moved out. He also would have thought, Abraham is a fool. He's still staying on that hill where you don't have a proper resource of water. Well, he was a blessing to Lot, not only when he parted. When Lot was captured by those kings, Abraham didn't even pray. You know that? When he heard what has happened to Lot, he immediately took men from his house, went and rescued Lot. So he was a blessing to Lot. He was also a blessing to the kings. Those kings, there was a battle, and those kings could not survive against the other group of kings, but Abraham delivered them. So he was a blessing to them. Then we know that he was a blessing to Melchizedek. He gave him the tithe. Then he was a blessing to Sodom. You know how? When God was about to destroy that city, what did Abraham do? Abraham prayed. He was interceding on behalf of Sodom. He almost bargained with God and saved Sodom. Almost. Because someone has said God ran away from Abraham. Otherwise, he would have bargained. After all, he's a Jew, right? He's good in bargaining. He would have bargained to the point that he would have spared Sodom. So he was a blessing. But when you come to chapter 20, Abraham and Sarah, they resolved or they decided in their mind. We read that in verse 10. They said about the land, there is no fear of God there. I really don't know why did they say that. Because if they knew for sure that there is no fear of God there, why did they go there in the first place? They could have moved out. After knowing that there is no fear of God, they moved to this place. Sometimes we know that it is bad and we shouldn't be going there, but still we go there. I don't know whether you heard the story of a man who wanted to reduce his weight, but he has a problem. His problem was that if he goes, while going, if he sees a sweet shop, the temptation is too much that he will go to the sweet shop and buy and eat sweets. So it is very difficult for him to lose his weight. So he prayed and he had some resolution saying that, Lord, I have to go through that street, but if I don't get a parking lot, then I will not stop my vehicle and I'll go directly to my office. But if there is a parking lot, then I will get down and eat sweet. Otherwise, I will not eat sweet. He went to the same street because he had to pass that street. He found the parking lot the 10th time. He went once, he couldn't find a parking lot, twice, thrice. On the 10th time, he got a parking lot. Yeah. Now he went and ate the sweet. So if you know that it is bad, why do you go there? They said there is no fear of God. They could have avoided that, but they didn't do that. They did not even ask God, should we go and stay here? The same mistake Abraham had when he went to Egypt. And we know what happened. When they came back, they became rich. But along with the money, along with the riches, they also had one person. Her name is Hagar. And we know what are the consequences of that. He didn't ask God whether I should go to this place and stay there in the country of Abimelech. He didn't pray. he also forgot what God did in Egypt. A similar situation was there in Egypt. He lied again, and he lied earlier also to Pharaoh that he's my sister, but Pharaoh found out. But there, God protected Abraham. God did not allow anyone to do any harm to Abraham, and Abraham realized that. He knew that, but now he has forgotten that. Now again, he is lying. Now, there was one more problem. You know what they said? There is no fear of God here. Now, I also must say that this is spiritual pride. There is no doubt about that. Now, there is no way that Abraham could have known everyone in that kingdom, in the country of Abimelech. There is no way. But he made it a point to say that there is no fear of God there. And what about him? Oh, I fear God. I am a spiritual person. But this people, this land, there is no fear of God. We need to be very careful here. Another man who spoke like this was Elijah. Elijah had this problem, the problem of I alone. He was telling God, God, you don't know. Only I am there. And God said, forget it, Elijah. I know at least a couple of thousands who have not bowed down to the Baal. Now, when we look at ourselves and the blessings that we received, there is a possibility that we look down upon others and we take pride. We will become proud and arrogant. Now, God visited Abraham, so Abraham had reasons to be proud, because for the first time, I think this is the only incident where God visited a man in his house and had food with him. Okay, Hebrew says it is the angel of God, but if you read that passage, you will understand the Lord spoke to Abraham, the Lord spoke to Sarah. So it was God himself visited his house, his tent, given him promise regarding the future. So his house was the only house till then was visited by God. So he had some reasons to be proud. Well, God revealed his plan, what he's going to do to Sodom and Gomorrah, and God did exactly what he has spoken to Abraham. He destroyed the city. Abraham saw the smoke going up. So he realized God is friendly with me. God visited my house, and God also reveals things to me. And that revelation was true. Exactly what God told me has happened. The revelation from God. I'm reminded, I'm sure you are also thinking about that verse, that passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. There we read of a man who had a lot of revelations, but he had a very level, sober head on his neck. He said, because of the abundance of revelation, there is a possibility. What is that? I may become proud and arrogant. You know what? When God speaks to us, God reveals his truths to us, we need to be extremely careful. We can become proud. Then, of course, he received a promise. Promise of Isaac was given to him, to his wife. So, looking at all these things, Abraham thought he's someone special for God, before God. He had all the reasons to be proud before God. Now we read in New Testament, twice we read that. Peter also says, James also says, God resists the proud or the arrogant. If God is not helping us, that's very bad. If we don't get the help of God, that's very bad. But imagine God is actively against us. That's really bad, isn't it? Now, pride will put us in that position where God will be actively against us. This is a sin that God hates the most. But spiritual pride, oh, that's such a subtle thing that creeps in to spiritual people. Those who are close with God, those who have been visited by God, those who have received revelations from God, those who have received promises from God, this sin can creep in. So I would say the reason for the failure of Abraham in this chapter, that is his spiritual pride. Now let's see what happened. They lied. No doubt it was a lie. Sarah was his wife, but he said, she's my sister. And Abimelech believed. Now, if a king sees a woman, and kings, it is their way of showing off their power and wealth by marrying more women. Even today, it is there in some of the Middle Eastern cultures. So it is an accepted thing for the king to increase the number of wives. Well, in Deuteronomy, when you read the instructions that are given to the king, this instruction is given: do not have more wives, because that is a practice. You should not do that. Abimelech, being a heathen king, he saw another woman and he thought, well, one more to my kitty. That was the attitude they had. But what surprises me the most, I'm sure many of you are thinking like this. Sarah was 75 plus, and this king had a crush on her. So just imagine the beauty of this woman. Okay, that's besides the point. But anyway, if you consider the culture and practice, Abimelech was innocent. He also knew that it is wrong to take the wife of another man. He didn't do that because Abraham and Sarah said they are brother and sister. So he did it out of his innocence, and he said that to God. Now, God prevented them, or God prevented Abimelech. Now, if you read this chapter carefully, you will understand that this conversation between Abimelech and God may not have happened on the very next day. Because when you come to the end of this narrative, you'll understand that it was some sickness that was there for some time. So Sarah was there in the custody of Abimelech for some time. I wonder how Abraham would have felt at that time. Because what is there in the previous chapter? The previous chapter we have, not 19, 18, the same incident, 18 and 19, you should read together. There, God came to Abraham and said specifically that your wife, Sarah, will have a child. Now, that Sarah is in Abimelech's house now. I don't know what was going through Abraham's mind. When you come to next chapter, there is a reason. The reason is, I believe, that Abraham was somewhat settled with Ishmael. So he voiced that to God. No need to trouble Sarah and her old age. Ishmael is enough. That was his attitude. Whatever may be the case, God prevented Abimelech to commit sin against Sarah. So this is something that we should read in the context of Abraham's spiritual pride. Abraham said that there is no fear of God in this land. And by saying that, what is he claiming? That I fear God, right? But it was God who prevented Abimelech or his people to commit sin against them. Now, we are familiar with this verse from Jude. Now, to whom he is able to keep you from stumbling
and to present you blameless before the presence of his glory with great joy. Okay, we use this verse as a benediction, isn't it? As a chorus of this song, these two verses. Him who is able to keep you from stumbling and present you blameless before the presence of his glory. Many times we take pride. Yeah, brother, I have a good testimony. You ask them, you ask my friends, you ask my colleagues. No, I'm not like that. I'm good. I've never done anything like that. That is spiritual pride. And then see what Jude says. It is him who's able to keep you from stumbling. So when you say that, no, I haven't fallen, I am great. God helped me to stand, God protected me. When we say that, we are actually saying that I didn't fall like the other brother. But remember, it was God who made you stand. It was God who kept from stumbling. It was God who kept you blameless. We will not be able to do it by ourselves. If you are able to do that, then let me tell you, Jesus Christ came into this world for nothing. We in our own self are not able to please God. Well, the whole religion, all the religions in the world, they are trying to do that. They want to please God. Even Christian religion, they are trying to please God. But the Bible says it is impossible for us to please God. To please God, you need the help from God. Even after you are saved, even after you have become a child of God, if you are able to please God, that is because the Spirit of God works in you. That when the Spirit helps you, then only you will be able to lead a life that's blameless before God, that's pleasing before God. Maybe when you look at the next chapter, we will see that the Spirit of God is contrary, or the enemy of the Spirit of God is not the spirit of devil or evil spirit. It is the flesh. So the moment you trust on your flesh, then you lose your strength. You don't have your strength to please God. Without depending on the strength of God, the Spirit of God will not be able to please God. So it is God who helps us to stand. And Abimelech said that. It is not Abraham who said, no, God told Abimelech that I have prevented you. I have prevented you from doing any evil. Now, it is interesting that God has spoken to Abraham many times. God has spoken to him in dreams, in visions, even while he was sleeping, God was speaking to him. But after he lied, God did not speak to Abraham. On the other hand, God spoke to Abimelech, the one about whom Abraham said, there is no fear of God. Oh no. But God is speaking to Abimelech, and Abimelech is speaking back to God. Abimelech spoke to God. There was a conversation between God and Abimelech, whereas Abraham was kept in the dark. God did not bother to speak to Abraham during this whole episode. So what did Abimelech spoke to God? Lord, will you kill an innocent people? These are the words of Abimelech to God. You heard this verse before? Well, we mentioned about it. Abraham, when he was interceding on behalf of Sodom, he said this. Are you going to destroy the righteous with the wicked? Something similar, isn't it? But that great act of intercession by Abraham, the same words are used by Abimelech, about whom Abraham said, no fear of God. He cannot be godly. Look what Abimelech said. Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Abraham had an embarrassment. He was actually humiliated. Abraham behaved as if there is no God, isn't it? When he lied, this is what he said. God is not going to protect us. We have to take care of ourselves. So he behaved as if there is no God. He did that by accusing the people, saying that they don't have the fear of God, while he himself behaved as if there is no God. Irony. But you know what God said? God told Abimelech, he did not say that, I know Abraham, yeah, a couple of years ago I had a deal with him, so I had to honor him. I must take care of him, yeah, what to do. No, that was not the tone in which God spoke to Abimelech. If you touch his wife, you are dead. You know, that's threatening. God was actually threatening Abimelech. Don't touch her. I'll kill you. I'll finish you. That's what God said. Then he said, he is a prophet. In spite of Abraham's failure, in spite of he lying to Abimelech, God was not ashamed to say these words to Abimelech. What did he say? He is a prophet. He's my prophet. Then God wanted Abraham to pray. He didn't say that, Abimelech, you pray. You pray. No. God wanted Abraham to pray. Now, I want you to put yourself in Abraham's position. You did something really bad and you spoiled the testimony of God before unbelievers. Now, will you be able to pray for them? Oh, what an embarrassment. What an embarrassment. Isn't it? I think that was the punishment God gave to Abraham. Well, it was an embarrassment. It was very difficult for Abraham, but Abraham had to. And when Abraham prayed, God listened to his prayer. God answered his prayer. God heard his prayer and healed the closed wounds. Now, we really don't know what exactly happened there. Closed all the wounds is what we read. But we know one thing. It affected all the people. It was a major issue. It is like if somebody finds a vaccine for COVID-19 and he got it as a revelation in the night, what will he do? Next day morning, he will call everyone and announce, yeah, I've got the medicine for COVID, and he will affect. Abimelech did something like that. Next day morning, he called his people, all of them, all his servants, he called them and said, see, we've been struggling, we were suffering for a problem, and I got the solution for that problem. That was the feeling. He called everyone and said, now there is a solution. So it affected all the people. Abimelech spoke to all the people when he had a conversation with God. He told them what needs to be done. Then he gave a lot of gifts to Abraham. Cattle, servants, male and female servants, he gave them. Why? Abraham, next time when he calls a servant who was given by Abimelech, or when he sees the cattle that was given by Abimelech, he should think of God's protection. Whenever we have problem, and whenever we are worried, whenever we are afraid of something bad will happen to us, you know what? We are forgetting what God has done in our life. In FIBA, my director, C.A. Benjamin, he normally says something like this. He says, look around your house. The things that you see, he said, I'm sure 90% of the things that you have in your house, you got it without praying for it. We didn't even pray for it, but God gave that to us. But when we have a problem, we don't look at those things and realize God's provision or God's protection. We only say, oh, what will happen? How will we live tomorrow? How are we going to face tomorrow? Now, God sends certain things into our lives, certain people into our life to remind us. See, God has provided for you. God has protected you. All of us have scars on our face or scar on our body. Even when you see those scars, you are reminded of God's protection. I remember our youngest son, once he fell down from the roof of our house. Now we live in an apartment. That time it was an independent house. And it so happened that he fell onto the car. This was a Maruti 800 car. He fell onto that. And there was a dent on the top of the car. So then we were using that car and children were growing. We all could fit in one Maruti 800. Okay, there was a time like that. So then we wanted to change the car. And we thought for a minute, shall we sell this car? This is the car that saved Danny's life. Then immediately, what nonsense are you talking? It is not the car who saved Danny's life. It is God. God used the car. But when you see that, you should remember it is God who protected us. So those gifts that were given to Abraham should remind him of God's protection. Now, the sarcasm of Abimelech, when he was giving that 1,000 pieces of silver to Sarah, you know what he said? I am giving this to your brother. You know what he said? Brother. Because he said he is my brother, and now he knows that he is not a brother, he is a husband. But in spite of that, Abimelech probably pulling their leg and said, your brother. So, from this, what are the lessons that we should learn? With that, we will wind up. Watch out for spiritual pride. It's a very subtle thing. It creeps in, but it is very, very dangerous. Watch out for spiritual pride. Looking down upon others, and I am very spiritual, they are not. Wait a minute. We are standing because of God. He makes us stand. God wants us to be a blessing to others. Now, if you behave like Abraham did in chapter 20, you will not be a blessing. You'll be a curse. But make sure that we will behave in a way that we will be a blessing to others, not a curse. God cares for us more than we do. Abraham thought, he should take care of himself. If he don't protect himself, then things will go out of his hand. But when Abraham had a problem, God spoke to Abimelech. He dealt with Abimelech, not with anyone else. The king of the land was dealt with by God. So God cares for us more than we do, or we can. God calls Abraham a prophet. This is funny, isn't it? This is not the time to call Abraham a prophet. Yes, I know him. I have helped him. I have made some promise. We have some dealings. Should have said that. But calls him a prophet. I believe that's the grace of God. When God called him, or God told Abimelech that he's my prophet, at least Abraham in his mind would have said, I don't deserve that title. I'm a liar. How can I speak on behalf of God? That's the grace of God. It is not because we are so perfect in our lives. It's not because we don't have any failure in our life. That is not why God is giving you a ministry. That's not why God is using you. God is giving you a ministry. No. It is His grace. In spite of your failure, God is calling you a prophet. So many people have this idea, no, I am a failure. I had a lot of failures in my life. God will not be able to use me. Let me tell you, brothers and sisters, they are denying when rejecting the grace of God. God is specialized. He's specialized in using failed people. Now, I'm not telling you so that you will go and fail. No, that's not what I'm saying. But if you are worried about your past failures, you confess that to God, and God is going to use you. God will make you his prophet. God is giving his name to you, that you are his prophet. And God also calls us to pray, not only for us. Abraham, I don't know whether he was praying for Sarah, Lord, protect Sarah. I don't know whether he was praying. But God made him pray for Abimelech, for the people in the land, so that Abraham will be a blessing. Now, I need not say this. This is the time when God is calling us to pray. Not just to pray that God protect us from all the harm and danger. We should do that. We should pray for the protection. We should pray for the healing. If any of us are sick, we should pray for our own people who are in danger, who are critically ill. We should pray. But we should also pray for those who are around us, that God will protect them. God will heal them. God will heal them because of our prayer. God asked Abraham to pray. So I think he is telling us also to pray so that God will heal not only us, God will heal our land. So this is my prayer, that we will learn these valuable lessons from chapter 20, where Abraham failed. He had his moments of embarrassment, but still God called him my prophet. He will pray for you. It's not because we Christians, we believers are perfect people. No, we are not. But God calls us to be his prophet, spokesperson of God, and also to intercede on behalf of the people who are around us. May God bless us to obey this.